Deck the halls with IBC. Fa la 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 la. You need to have a policy. Fa la 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 la. Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents channel. My name is Jesse Durham. Merry Christmas. This is going to be our Christmas episode. Should release right before Christmas time. So from my family to yours, I hope you have had a great year, that you're enjoying this season that we are in, and that you're looking forward to a great new year. Also looking forward to recording our New Year's episode. But this one is coming on the heels of our Thanksgiving episode, where things were a little looser. I feel like, you let me know. I'm open to your feedback. It was a little looser. I was talking a bit about personal growth and development, things I was thankful for. Of course, always how IBC plays into what it is that we are doing as a family and what it is that we do in our lives. This one will be somewhat the same. I'm actually going to start by telling a Christmas time story. Again, a little different. That's okay. This is something that I reflect on in this time of year. Of course, we're watching lots of, fun things with our children, and there are different programs going on. So as I was preparing for this episode, I was thinking about these different things and how they overlap in my mind, at least, as far as I always view so many things through an infinite banking lens. It's just the paradigm that we've adopted and assimilated into our lifestyle, and of course overlapping that, interplaying with this season and everything that's going on. So a Christmas story it is. Now, from a very old book about a time far, far ago, many, many years ago. Essentially, there was this family at, we're going to call it the end of the year. Go along with me on the dates. But many, many years ago, at the end of a particular year, there was a family that was going to be making a journey together. They had a lot going on. They had a lot to do. Perhaps you've felt that way. I've certainly felt that way at different times in life, that there was just so much going on. Perhaps I reflect about our daughter, who is our youngest child. She was born this time of year, not too much before Christmas time. And that very first Christmas, we were able to celebrate with her in home after being born. And that was great. We're very thankful for the timing to work out the way that it did there. But what I'm saying is right there at the end of the year, I had a lot of big business things going on, stressful things. Of course, knowing that we would be having our third child just any day, just lots going on. Anyway, this family, they had lots going on. There was a pregnancy as well there. They had a big trip ahead of them. There were some political things going on at the time that played into that story as well. So here this family is, and they've got to make this trip right here at the end of the year. I don't know how expected it was actually either. So I guess when I started thinking about that part of this story, I started thinking about, just like I start thinking about this year, how have I done with Parkinson's law? See, that's the very first human problem that Nash mentions in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker. And it never goes away. I was having this particular conversation with a client this week, and this client's been practicing for some years now, has multiple policies, doing great. And we still got on the subject of how Parkinson's law, there's not an inoculation for Parkinson's law, meaning that we can do something well one time and then it's done. No, we always confront it. So right here at the end of a year, I have to introspect I choose to introspect and consider, how did I fare against Parkinson's law this year? And perhaps this family was doing that as well, to have a couple of things jump out at them unexpected, things that they were not anticipating perhaps at the beginning of that year, but they had to deal with at the end of that year. The pregnancy, it was an unexpected pregnancy, and then the travel that was necessitated because of these political reasons. So this family, they're having to travel. What I'm saying is how well we address Parkinson's law on a daily, monthly, yearly basis that can compound on itself. If we're ignoring it, we're not confronting it at all, we're spending more than we earn, we're taking too much time to do things when they could be done quicker. See, those are parts of Parkinson's law where he would say that expenses tend to rise to meet income, meaning if income goes up, expenses tend to go up as well. And he would also talk about how if we're given a certain time frame to accomplish a task, that our natural human tendency is to just use that entire time, whether we need to use that full time or not to accomplish whatever the task happens to be. So confronting Parkinson's law. That way, when unexpected things happen, we've had habits, disciplines, and a track record that's hopefully built up both the constitution, the fortitude, but also the practical means of alleviating or accounting for or smoothing out those unexpected happenings. And side note, I don't recall whether Nash mentions Murphy's Law right off the top of my head right now, but Murphy also had a law, and that is that if something could go wrong, it will go wrong. So the future's unknown. James Nethery says very often, for example, you don't know what's in the future. I don't know what's in the future. So it's good to be prepared. Inside, outside, both. So this family is traveling at the end of the year. Baby on the way. Lots of political turmoil going on at the time. Let's talk about that a little bit. So the political turmoil at the time was that the government of the day was demanding that every family go to their town or their region of birth for their census, for tax purposes. So, of course, we must address taxes. And Robert Kiyosaki does that by saying that taxes are perhaps the largest eroder to wealth. R. Nelson Nash, in his book Becoming Your Maker, says that the Willie Sutton law, it's in that particular law where he's talking about taxes some, and they just are. They just are. Scripture says, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. It's inevitable. Taxes exist. They're going to be paid. I have feelings about that. You have feelings about that. Probably they might be different, but it's a reality that needs to be addressed. There are people, entities, governments out there that will take your money from you. It will be compulsory. And, there are so many means, So Willie Sutton's law is wherever wealth is accumulated or amassed, there's always going to be somebody wanting to take that, trying to take that. Okay, so here this family is being uprooted from whatever their plans were or their current situation was to, by compulsion, go back to this town to be taxed. So how did we fare this year, and what does next year look like when it comes to addressing Willie Sutton's law, when it comes to addressing taxes? And I commonly ask folks a couple of questions about taxes, and I'm no tax expert, and this isn't tax advice, but I read history books, and I try and pay attention, of course, in this life and learn as I go. But are taxes likely to go up or down in the future? I'm just proposing that you consider this with me. Are taxes likely to go up or down in the future? Will they be greater in 2023 than they were in 2022? Okay. And then are we perhaps likely to be taxed on more things in the future? Possibly, right? So I'm just saying these are good things to evaluate. I'm just using this story. When I just started writing out notes because I write out notes. I write out notes for all kinds of things. And I was looking at that story in just kind of a different way as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk here about because, I can't help but look at things with an infinite banking lens. But again, I was thinking about, these seasonal things, of course. So taxes were addressed, these thousands of years ago when this story took place, but they're addressed here and now as well. We'll give an accounting for 2022 here real soon, and 2023 is going to be starting when it comes to taxes, when it comes to addressing Willie Sutton's Law. So I'm asking us to consider that. Now, this travel is ahead of this family then. This pregnancy, the story continues by talking about family gatherings that were had ahead of them. This is relevant now. Again, I'm looking forward to plenty of gatherings with friends and family this time of year. I hope that you are as well. So this family as well, there were some hard times ahead. And I guess if I went back real quick, because I'm thinking, again, I'm getting back in that mindset of when my wife and I were expecting our little girl, things were stressful and things were on level 10, like I was describing. And yet, looking ahead over the course of her first year of life, we made the move to get at the time would have been our 6th policy. So our 6th policy was on our little girl. So before she was a year old, we didn't even let her reach 1 before she had a policy on her. And what an interesting thing. Again, I mean, I've already mentioned Parkinson's Law. I've mentioned Willie Sutton's Law. She in her time will have to confront those laws as well. They're just human problems. They were back in the time of the story we're going through. They are in our time. They will be looking ahead for her. So we had that 6th policy in force before she was 1 year old, which was a lot of fun. But again, just more context for the here and now. Regardless, as this story develops, so this family, they make the trip back to their hometown. Baby's delivered. It was crowded. It was busy, and things are crowded and busy this time of year as well, just as the regular season of the year goes. But again, add that layer of the political upheaval at the time. Everybody else is having to travel as well to pay their taxes. So they were just having a rough time getting places, finding accommodations during their travels. The mother ended up giving birth in a stable. Maybe you've heard of this story by now. You're catching on. But this mother gave birth in a stable because they were not even able to stay at the local hotel. So hard times. But the redeeming light is that, or one particular part of redemption is that there were some unexpected guests, and those unexpected guests brought some unexpected gifts. So while this family had gone through the experience of having a new child as part of their family and not having very enjoyable accommodations and showing up in the first place to be taxed unwillingly. Well, there were some traveling gentlemen who brought gifts, rich gifts. These were wealthy gifts. Apparently, these folks had an abundance at that point in their lives, and they were looking to alleviate some of the need and just be a blessing, apparently, to these folks. And naturally, this time of year, and again in our Thanksgiving episode, we've talked about charitable giving. And again, if we get to the golden rule, for example, because I'm walking through Nash's human problems, and we get to the golden rule. Well, the golden rule says that he who has the gold makes the rules. These gentlemen, in their gifts, one of those gifts was gold itself, physical gold. And I had a lot of thoughts there, of course, in looking at this story with an infinite banking lens, just because, one, I think about how Carlos Lara and Bob Murphy have mentioned Exeter's pyramid, which is it's an upside down pyramid, and perhaps we'll do an episode just on that. But the foundation of this upside down pyramid is physical gold, and there are all these other assets, whether that's bonds and stocks and small businesses that you own and all these different things. But at the foundation, again, it's an upside down. So at what would be the apex of the pyramid is actually at the base. So it's upside down. But gold is there. Well, these gentlemen brought gold. That's a wealthy gift. It's a rich gift, and again, it was unexpected. So thinking about Exeter's pyramid, one thing I'm saying is that back then, gold had a role. Now, gold has a role. Robert Kiyosaki says that dollars are man's money and that gold is God's money because it's just naturally here. And again, I'm not making advice about investments. I'm just talking about history and telling this story and thinking about these things with you. But gold was given, so that made me think about Exeter's pyramid and how in turbulent times, good times, gold maybe has a role. Precious metals have a role. It wasn't refused. I mean, I'll say it that way. It wasn't refused. The gift was accepted. I would accept the gift. You would accept the gift of gold. So, oh my. Yeah, no matter how you feel about that, if you're going to be given it as a gift, you'll take it. I would. But I also naturally think of the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. That's another of the human problems that we must address. See, normally, at least here, speaking about the average American, the average all-American is going through life having abdicated the banking function to someone else. Therefore, that puts us in a position of financial servitude to someone else because we borrow their money on their terms and conditions. We pay them interest if we qualify, front the collateral, all these different things for whatever our lifestyle happens to be. Whereas if we were to proactively amass capital where we own and control, then we are in a position of making our own rules. So as it pertains to our lifestyle, our household, our businesses, our investments, he who has the gold makes the rules. Okay? So it was a good gift. It was an unexpected gift from an unexpected person. Now that in particularly made me think about, so just developing this discussion about the golden rule a little bit more, windfalls. Windfalls are perhaps expected, perhaps also unexpected. And it might be something that you expect, but you don't know when. Again, I was speaking with a prospective client recently who does music out in California. And that's one of those things that they'd been in the game for a good long while and had more recently, gotten the kind of traction that they had wanted. And, they're looking at royalties and different things. So, again, that's just one example that just jumped in my mind from having a phone call conversation with somebody about the infinite banking concept and how that would play into their particular situation. But windfalls, unexpected, whether that's unexpected altogether or just unexpected, you don't know when it'll happen. But again, wealth must reside somewhere. So you could either be in a position of having an entity, having a system that can accommodate windfalls optimally, or not, and you have a lack thereof. Okay, so as far as that particular part of the story goes, where these unexpected guests bring unexpected gifts, gold being one of them, that was a rich gift, is a wealthy gift, Made me think about the golden rule, made me think about windfalls. It made me think about Exeter's pyramid and how at different times, because of political reasons or economic reasons, small businesses or stocks or bonds or real estate or precious metals or any other asset class may have a particular importance. So look up Exeter's pyramid, and perhaps we'll talk about that some more in the future as well. If you have a takeaway, also let me know in the comments. Love to be able to hear that. A little bit more on the wise men. Also, I recently heard on Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad podcast where he had related, and I believe I'd heard it before, but I'd forgotten. But he was talking about how growing up in Hawaii, in Sunday school, he was prompted by a Sunday school teacher, a church teacher, about this particular story as well. Why were the wise men wise men? What about them made them wise men? And his thinking was well, I mean, they had this and that and the other. They were wealthy. They were wise because they were wealthy. I mean, they had to get that wealth somehow. So they conducted their affairs wisely. And the teacher said, no. And she gave Robert Kiyosaki an answer and me a different answer than I would have anticipated as well. Having been in Sunday school all of my life, it was not what I was expecting either. Such a good point. He said it was. It was impactful to him. That's why I was telling the story as well. He said that no, the teacher said that these were wise men because they were seeking out the best teachers in life. So they'd actually come bearing these gifts for a very particular reason. But what a perspective to consider, that they came and traveled and brought these gifts for someone that could be a great teacher to them. So I think that's fantastic. I just think that's absolutely fantastic. And that's why, here on our channel and our podcast, I start with education. I've really adopted and assimilated what R. Nelson Nash would say when he would say, when you know what's going on, you'll know what to do. So I do my very best to help us know what's going on. That way you can figure out how to become financially independent and autonomous yourself by making those calls and decisions yourself, by implementing, the golden rule, so that you can have your gold, make your rules. That's a metaphor. Get gold if you want, but that's a metaphor. The golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. But that point about teaching. Okay, so that's my segue into another of the human problems, which is the arrival syndrome. Folks who think, I know that, I do that, just as a knee-jerk reaction to seeing information, hearing information, thoughts, ideas, someone else's perspective. I know that. Just instinctively disregarding, by having a closed mind, another perspective, new information, more information, different information. So the arrival syndrome, Nash said, and we're going through we're doing a book review series at this time. There are a few episodes on our book review series. It's a book review series of Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash, and we're going through these topics one at a time. So I'm just, I guess, sharing that in case you haven't noticed yet. But that's been a lot of fun to go through each of these as well. But this arrival syndrome, Nash would say that it's perhaps the most difficult to deal with. That was him saying from his perspective, and I would say that from my perspective as well, is having a conversation with somebody about this concept of becoming your own banker, knowing good and well that they, as well as I, when I first picked up R. Nelson Nash's book in 2015, I had preconceived ideas, I had assumptions, I had ideas, and I had a certain thinking process at that time, as experience at that time. Thankfully, I was open-minded enough to read the book, for one. to follow up and ask questions about what it was that I was reading and learning and seeing about this idea of becoming your own banker, and working with a professional that could help me get started and implement this into our lives. So thankfully I was open-minded enough at least to read the book and to get started. And now, oh my goodness, now we approach everything in personal finance from the position of being our own banker. So again, we've not arrived. We're not done. We're still on our journey as well, personally, in becoming our own banker. And yet, Nash would say from the professional end, and that's where I'm at now, I'm saying from the professional end, when I'm talking with prospective clients, that's perhaps the most difficult human problem to overcome, is the idea that, oh, I know that, or I do that already. Do you? Do you? And do I? Again, it's like, this is not an inoculation either. Just like we were talking about with Parkinson's law, it's not like you can be inoculated once against the arrival syndrome. No, we all have egos and experiences and perspectives and ideas and thoughts about things. And that's one of the things that I appreciate so much about even reading such a simple book, short and yet deep at the same time, book as Becoming Your Own Banker, because Nash just freely shares about his recommended readings throughout that book. So addressing the arrival syndrome, that was really neat that I'd heard that quote from Robert Kiyosaki about, no, the wise men were wise men because they were seeking the best teacher. So my encouragement there, of course, is naturally, I hope you're getting lots of help and encouragement and guidance from hearing, our best practices here and this podcast and YouTube, everything that we're doing to share the things that we are having, client interviews, going over popular quotes, financial quotes that we're just born into, assimilating those in our common vernacular, having, we've got a quick take series where I give some rapid fire, hopefully more or less rapid fire insight on vital subjects. And then of course, just our general episodes where we cover lots of, longer form material. But all that to say, I'm still on my way. You're obviously still on your way. If you're listening to this, you've not arrived. You're still learning right there with me. So in the comment section, whether it's you putting out something about your favorite book, or you let me know maybe your favorite book from this year, I'd love to hear things like that. But these wise men, they had not arrived. They were paying attention to the signs. They were looking for the truth. They were looking for the best teachers. I think that would be an indication that we are fighting the good fight against the arrival syndrome, that we as well have mentors in our life, are looking for mentors in our life in certain areas. Now, in thinking further about these gifts, just in general, I couldn't help but think that from the same book that this particular story comes from that we're relating today, there's another passage where it more or less says that it's better to give than to receive. And this for many of us is a very giving time of year, whether it's we're thinking more about folks that we can maybe tip along the way for the services and the help that they provide, or maybe a surprise gift to somebody that has some part in our lives that's just commonplace and taken for granted. What an opportunity there is there to give. These are just some of my thoughts right here. And then, of course, ultimately, even thinking about gift giving for our children is a very common thing this time of year. And in using an infinite banking lens, of course, I think about, well, a great gift that we can give is wrapped up in the idea that you could become your own banker. So education, how we're educating our children. Actually, recently, I can't reach it. I set it aside somewhere. My boys were talking with me about businesses that they plan on starting as they grow up. It was so fun to be able to hear And we got to talk about that, and I'd actually written down a couple of things to just try and give a visual for what it was that they were describing. But whether it's, giving education or, like I said, getting policies on your children. We have policies on each of our children, and we're not done there either. The idea, of course, is to have a system of policies over the course of your lifetime to account for 100% of your need of finance, ultimately, to become your own banker. And by doing that ourselves, of course, we're trying to set it up where we are setting it up, where our children will have a very different starting point than my wife Lauren and I had in getting going, financially speaking, in life. But again, not just financially, right? I mean, the wise men, teachers, mentors. So education, it's a big part. Policies themselves, that's a big part as well. Because those are gifts that keep on giving. These whole life policies, these contracts, they date up to 121 years. And I plan to be here 120 years. Not sure about 121, hopefully 120. But it's for our whole life. So not you can own the product for your whole life. But of course, how you use it is the biggest difference. And it's just a gift that can keep on giving because it gets more and more efficient over the course of time as an entity itself, a properly structured whole life policy with a mutual company that pays dividends. That's what I'm here for. I can help you with that. But what we do with that, that's a gift that keeps on giving to our charitable giving purposes, to our legacy purposes, and of course, starting with whatever it is that we're already doing, financing our lifestyle such as it is right now. Doesn't matter whether somebody earns, $10,000 a year or $10,000 an hour. Doesn't matter. Everything's financed, and these human problems that we've addressed via this Christmas time story, they are always relevant. They never go away. So I hope that this has been helpful and encouraging. What I'm talking about is family banking. We're looking at family gatherings this time of year, family giving, family interactions of all kinds to celebrate this time of year. And it's an uncommon time where more time is spent together. And the concept of family banking for us just becomes more and more important. So I appreciate you letting me relate this story, this Christmas time story. It has a very happy ending. If you'd like to hear more about that could be a separate phone call. We could discuss that as well. But I hope that this has been encouraging for you along your way. If you've been listening throughout the year, I'm very grateful. I'd love to be able to hear from you. What have been your biggest takeaways as we wrap this year up? I'd love to be able to hear from everybody. I hope you have a great time yourself, a Merry Christmas. And if you'd like to have a conversation about how to implement the infinite banking concept into your household or your business or your investing, then you could reach us. And this has been a great pleasure for me. I look forward to our next conversation. Have a great day. Merry Christmas. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to talk about IBC. Deck the halls with IBC. Fa la 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 la. You need to buy a policy. Fa la 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 la. That's funny. Deck the halls with IBC. If you want to get started, talk to me. Oh my goodness. Let's do that. Let's do that again. I guess. I don't know. Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy. You can become your own banker. Fa la 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 la. Merry Christmas. You filthy animal. That just jumped into my mind. I had to. I'm going to give you to the count of 10 to get you lousy. No, I can't do it. Keep the change, you filthy animal. All right, let's go with that. Hello and welcome to the Durham. Yep. It's all good. Deck the halls with IBC. Fa la la la.